Welcome, everyone. I am Janice Coyle, founder of the New Earth Visioning Project. Our mission here is to promote people and ideas that help to bring about what we call a new earth and a new us. In this endeavor, we hold a vision of a world where, as we say, love is Lord, and a vision of ourselves as new earth people, expanded in consciousness, aware of our multidimensionality, and in harmony with all life. We also hold in our hearts the vision of our guests as well. So we're lucky today. Our guest is Dr. Jaap Van Etten, who's joining us from Arizona. Welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah. A little bit about him. Jaap Van Etten is an international speaker and worldwide workshop facilitators. He is the author of 5 books and has written numerous articles on metaphysical ecology subjects for magazines in the US and the Netherlands. He was born and educated in the Netherlands, where he received his Ph.D. in biology from the University of Amsterdam, specializing in ecology and population genetics. His career included teaching biology, being a laboratory technician, and a research scientist. He spent 6 years in Africa, which exposed him to many different cultures and ideas and a different look at ecology. In 1990, he shifted his attention to spirituality, energy healing, the study of earth and crystalline energies, and the subtle worlds. Studying these subjects for 30 years. He spent 20 years exploring hundreds of vortexes in the Sedona area to understand Earth's energy lines and power spots, and how they affect the human energy system. He includes the results of these studies in his books, lectures, articles, workshops, and online courses. During these studies, Dr. Van Etten developed inner sight and knowing into the unseen realms. He utilizes these abilities together with his knowledge to continue his study of the interaction between the subtle energies of ourselves and those of the world around us. He calls this metaphysical ecology. Our guest co-founded the Center of Metaphysical Ecology, which offers courses, books, and videos on various spiritual topics relating to the spiritual nature of Mother Earth, ourselves, and all beings we have available to us that are helping in the advancement and upliftment of us all. Wow, there's so much to talk about, so much. But let's begin, Jaap. You began as a scientist, a mainstream scientist, I assume. Then in 1990, you shifted your attention to spirituality and the study of the subtle worlds. What motivated you to make this change? What happened?
Well, I think the main reason was not being happy with science. Science has, of course, a specific way of looking at the world. Yeah? And then we call it that what is measurable, that is what repeatable, according to certain paradigms. And especially when I worked in Kenya, when everything is different for somebody who grew up on a flat pancake country like the Netherlands, it was so different, and it forces me to look at the world in a different way. And when you start looking at the world in a different way, there are a lot of question marks that are coming up. And the biggest question mark that came up was actually the question, what are we doing with ecology? We are supposed to support Mother Earth We are supposed to make sure that all plants and animals and humans are living in harmony. And what we do is we use ecology to justify destruction. And that was my shocking realization. On top of that, I was always sitting with that big question of what exactly is life force? We know that if there is no life force, we are dead, but there's no way we can measure it. So how can you go into studying a world with life is a key element without knowing what it actually means? Yeah, because it's not measurable. So that is where I realized that, if you stick to the standard science, you will always miss an opportunity to go beyond what actually science is dictating. And I'm not going into the politics of science because that is a completely different subject. But it brought me to this big question of, okay, what is my life force? What is the life force of a tree? And how are all those different energies interacting with the life force of Mother Earth? Well, if you have that question, then you open not only enormous amount of doors, you also open a can of worms, as I say, because a lot of people don't like that questions. And actually, it made that I lost a lot of my friends, which were all in the scientific world, because they thought I went off the deep end. Well, and the reason that I started to study it was also because my first wife died from cancer at that time. And it made me realize how little we actually understand diseases and how diseases are influenced by emotions and thoughts and beliefs and all this kind of thing. So there was this whole package of different things that made me realize, okay, this is a key moment in my life. My life is changing because my wife died. Am I going in the old ways? Or am I going to do finally what I feel is a better way to approach this world? But yeah, that meant for me leaving the standard scientific community. And it was not an easy transition, to be honest with you. But I, now more than 33 years later, I can say it was a very rewarding, because that gives the opportunity to suddenly free yourself from any preconceived ideas. And if there is one thing important that I hope that in whatever we are going to talk about today, that one thing comes over as the most important thing, we have to let go of the belief structures about how this world is functioning. Because that makes us stuck into this world. That makes us stuck in approaching problems with the same way of thinking. Well, you remember the famous statement that you cannot resolve that with a problem that is caused with a certain way of thinking cannot be resolved with the same way of thinking. So we need to learn to think differently. And the only way to do that is to look at the world in a different way. And we need then to include what I call subtle energies. Interesting thing is that when you look at how science is reacting, then you see that what used to be the definition of electromagnetic energy is changing. So more and more what was called subtle energies, let's say 30 years ago, are now part of science. And this will change. So there is still hope for science, but I think we don't have to wait for that. I think we have to go to that point where we say, okay, how can we help each other to look at this world in a different way? How can we challenge each other to look at this world in a different way? And can we believe and train ourselves to develop in such a way that we can not only believe, but also perceive that there are far more beings in the invisible world than there are in the visible ones? And that everything is interacting with each other. Well, now you see that metaphysical ecology is an unbelievable expanded subject that all is depending on each other, is all interacting with each other. But as human beings, we need to start somewhere. Yeah, we need to start somewhere in trying to look at this world in a different way. And I think there are two ways. We have to look at ourselves in a different way, and we have to look at the earth in a different way. Yeah, and that will help us then to open new doorways. Yeah, challenging each other and not being afraid to throw out something, even though maybe most people say, hey, this person is nuts. Well, let them say this is nuts, because without being a little bit nuts, you will never free yourself from standard belief structures. That is a little bit extensive answer on your question, but that's how it started to change.
And so we in this group, we're very much about becoming more expanded and new earth people and so forth. We need to look at the world in a different way. What would you suggest? How do we look at the world in a different way? We begin by just letting go of our own beliefs and everything. Then what? What did you do?
I remember a moment sitting, talking to the best of my abilities, always to the best of your ability, of course, with my guides. Yeah. And I more or less had the same question. And I said, I'm so full with all that I've learned, and I've been teaching at the university. So I had to be within the certain parameters of that. So I've been so trained for so many years. What can I do? Exactly that question. And the answer was really very interesting. My guide said, okay, get up in the morning and throw all that you believe in the air. Close your eyes, relax, and simply allow it to unfold. And some of it will fall back into your system, and some of it will fall next to your system because you no longer need it. Because your intention with which you throw it in the air is, I only want to get back what for me in this phase of my life is still optimal. And I started to do that. Yeah. And it was actually really interesting because I started putting question marks on many things. And once I had that question mark, some of the things fell away. And that brought me to an increasingly, let's say, a vision that is the basis of the work that I'm doing now. Yeah. And I still do that. When I get stuck, I throw everything in the air. So if that moment where there is a moment of nothingness, and we can truly feel that moment of nothingness, then only that what is still relevant can come back. If your mind is still full with all beliefs, well, the same thing will come in and anchor itself even deeper, you understand? So that's how I do it. But it's also training. And what I mean with training is I train myself to believe that everything that I hold as belief is nothing more than a moment in a continuous development. Because nothing what I believe is really true. Yeah. So if you can admit to yourself that what you believe is not true, but that is where you at this moment are working with, that will change tomorrow, then you're less and less stuck in your belief structures. Then you're also willing to change and shift much quicker. Let me give an example. One of the things that I believed is that we need to focus on the earth and the human beings. Yeah. Because the human beings are the ones that are not following, you can say, the potential of what is there for them in the morphogenetic system that is connected to humans. Now, plants and animals are in alignment with the morphogenetic system. They simply exist in alignment with it. But because we have free will, we jump left and right and are not surrendering to that flow of information that tells us what our optimal potential is. Our potential is in a field of information, the morphogenetic field. And then when we go to the grids on Earth, then we can connect with what out of that field has been realized. Yeah. And a vortex is a connection between those two. So there you have the choice to use already that what we are, let's say, collectively have worked with over time, and that full potential. Well, let's say an oak tree is naturally tapped into full potential. Yeah. But it can only express it to the degree that other systems are determining it. And we are, and I don't want to go into many details, but there are 12 systems, fields of morphogenetic information. And, it's starting with the first one is bacteria, and you go through the different plant types and trees, and then you come to the different animals. And we are the 11th level of morphogenetic information. And what is happening is that the 12th one is the enlightened human being. So all information for being the enlightened human being is already in that field that Mother Earth is holding. The potential is fully there. Yeah? And more people begin to tap into that. But if we are not willing to let go of the belief structures, we will stay in the mostly deformed aspects of that 11th morphogenetic field. And the human is actually the co-creator field. Yeah? That we share with whales, and we share it with dragons and unicorns and that kind of beings, right? So we are the ones who are missing. The dragons, they know what they need to do. Unicorns, they know what they need to do. Human beings, they are still searching. They're still searching for that. Who knows? One day the light bulbs goes on. And so the more we are willing to understand that we actually are in a time of transition from the 11th to the 12th, that's the new Earth development, because you need the enlightened human being to use the potential of Mother Earth to create a new Earth, then we will make quantum leaps. Yeah. And the interesting thing, it's there. That whole grid is there. And through the vortexes, you can connect with it. That's the reason why I'm so passionate about studying Earth energies and sitting with my butt on such a vortex. I'm like, okay, let me feel, and whatever comes in helps me to shake me loose out of the old belief structures so that new things can come in. But if you're not going to this kind of, let's say, energetic pushes, it's more difficult. Yeah, we need something to get us going, because otherwise we keep sitting in that belief structure that we have built in order to feel as safe and adapted to the environment that we live in. And that is the reason why we have difficulty to grow. It's unsafe to change and unsafe to be different from the rest. Yeah. But yeah, you have to roll the sleeves, as I say, and say, I'm going to go my path, right?
Interesting. Now you have so many teachings and so much wisdom and so many things you've studied and all of that. Question: do you let go of all that too?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Mm-hmm. Because, okay, if you really connect with the morphogenetic system, and let's say the potential, let me not use that word, the field of potential of humans as a co-creator. Mm-hmm. And then there is the field of potential of the enlightened human being. Yeah? Those two are there. Well, if I go to the belief structures, even though I may to some degree think them different than quite some people, I'm still also plugged into the belief structure. I'm still part of the collective. Yeah. So the words that I try to find to explain something are all energetic little packages that throws me immediately into the, let's say, the collective consciousness, right? Because we are still not telepathically communicating with each other, because then you would see what is behind my words. Yeah, so you have still my words and you interpret my words with your, let's say, consciousness construct, right? And that's not good or bad, it's just how it is. Yeah. So in the same way, when I use words, I know I'm limiting myself to what really is out there. So yes, I still throw it every time in the air. And some people tell me, well, when I did your workshop 2 years ago, you said something different. I said, yes, it's a different time. In this moment, my belief structure about that has changed. So I share with you now where I am. You need to, this is for everyone who's listening also, you need to feel from your heart where you resonate with. Yeah, because the heart is actually the selector in what works and what doesn't work. The mind cannot make that selection. It's not possible. So when we use a word, in that moment, we plug into the mind. Yeah, because the heart doesn't need words. The heart feels, communicates on a completely different level. So every time, even although we feel in the heart, at the moment that we give it words, we restrict back to a certain limited way of transferring information. And again, it's not about good or bad, it's simply we need to recognize that. So yeah, if I hold on to this is the words that I've written 10 years ago, so it must still be true, which I see many people doing, I don't believe so. What I was thinking 10 years ago is not what I'm thinking now. And I hope that when I go many years more, that I will again change my way of seeing this world. But what I do see is that the basic structure and the interrelationship between systems becomes clearer. Not the details, but the way things are interacting with each other becomes clearer. The morphogenetic system is a system that exists. It's a field with subfields. That doesn't change. But the way I can connect with it, the way I interpret it, that is changing. Yeah. And that is true for us as human beings. How do we see ourselves? That's always a very interesting question. How do we see ourselves? What does it mean to be a human being? Yeah. Does that mean that we are a biological unit that strives for survival? Well, that is how most people function most of the day. And it's not, again, right or wrong. That is the biological unit that has its own mind, and that mind is geared towards survival. So we'll always do everything to make sure you're safe. Well, what safe means, that's a whole other discussion, of course, but that is what it's doing. Well, we also are another unit, which we call our spiritual essence or soul or whatever term you prefer, that works through this physical system into this earth system. Yeah. Now that system has its own mind, and we call that the higher mind, or there are other terms for that as well. Let's stick to the term the higher mind. Well, those two minds are not really very well communicating in most cases. Yeah. So what is those two minds are locked in between two other things, and that is the physical and the spiritual. Yeah. So the spiritual is sending in messages through the higher mind to the lower mind so that it can be expressed in the physical. And the physical receives messages from Mother Earth and say, are you in alignment with me? No, you're not in alignment with me. So those two are supposed to come together through the heart. Yeah. The heart is the one that brings it together and then selects that what is most resonant so that we can act in alignment, speak in alignment, think in alignment with that. Yeah. But we can jump high and low, if we have not the, let's say, quietness to calm down that mind of that biological unit, then it will always dominate the higher mind that is supposed to bring the spiritual message through so that the heart can then decide what to do with that. Yeah. And not only that, the heart is also a brain that directly communicates, of course, with our spiritual essence. In the same way as our gut brain is directly communicating with our physical essence. And then the brain here needs to bring it all together, right?
I have a question. It brings up a question. When we spoke before, you had a few things that you really wanted people to know. And one of them, you said, connect with people as who you are.
Yes.
In your current wisdom today,
yes,
what are we, Dr. Eddie?
I love that. Yes. Well, in my current...
What are we?
It's one of the most difficult things for us to understand who we really are and to connect with who that person really is. And the reason, as I said, is because we go into those survival strategies. So whenever a person is doing something that triggers something in our subconscious mind, boom, we are already off, and we cannot see that person. On top of that, if we can't see ourselves, we can never see another person properly as well. So when we try to connect with people as who they are, then there are two levels to that. The level that I think is the first step is accepting that wherever a person is, the person is always supposed to be there, or that person wouldn't be there. And that is that beginning of acceptance instead of going into judgment. So the worst things we can do is judge another person's journey. So we can connect with, okay, that is where that person is, and I accept that person as being on that step of their journey. Then we change already a tremendous amount of energy that goes in the collective, and that is the energy of, let's say, stress, non-acceptance, intolerance. Now we can go on with all those different worlds. So that is that one layer that I think is very, very important, that we are, let's say, very serious about understanding that everybody's on their journey. It also means that if we truly want to communicate with anybody that we meet on our path, we have to do that from that acceptance that that person is there where that person is. And I know it's not always easy, because sometimes people can be darn irritating, that place on their journey they are, and then you have to deal with that, right? Yeah. But at the same time, it trains you as a person when you approach that, in looking at, well, how do I respond and react to all those different people around me? Where am I on my journey? Where do I judge? So by accepting that the person is on their journey, you also begin to accept that you are on your journey. And only when you accept where you are, you can make changes. You cannot change what you can't accept. It's not possible. And I see people, I work quite a lot with people, and they see the same challenge. They want to change, but they don't want to accept the problem that they have. So how can you change something that you have not accepted? Then you only scratch at the surface, and you never get to what really the essence is. So for me, accepting the person where the person is also the journey that you are on, and helping yourself. And then there is another aspect, and that is that aspect of learning to see the spiritual essence of the person. To learn to look beyond the physical only. Because if you can make a connection with, let's say, the soul aspect, the communication, everything is changing instantly. And if you then can communicate from that aspect, and that is the set down, that's why I call it the second phase, because if the first phase is insufficiently unfolded, then you cannot do the second phase. And then you can suddenly see the beauty of everyone, the potential of everyone. And I go back to that field. Every human being, in the same way as Mother Earth has her full potential, each person has its own full potential. And that full potential is not to be a healer, or to be this or to be that. It's just an expression of that potential, if that's part of who you are. Potential is allowing to unfold who you are without judgment, without wanting to be something that our mind is telling us that we should be based on what other people are telling us. So it's again, we go back to the heart. It allows to unfold step by step who you really are, instead of who you have been told that you need to be in order to be a, let's say, supportive, interesting part of our society. And then I go back to throw everything in the air, because whatever you believe about yourself is what, to a large degree, has been told to you that you're supposed to be.
Well, thank you. Let's pause to see if anybody else would like to ask you any questions. Anybody want to ask a question at this point? Go ahead, Susan.
I am just thrilled listening to you. I totally resonate with everything you're saying. I've had an interesting journey myself, many moves and changes and things. And there's something that you're saying here, and you're looking at the world today. And I'm wondering if perhaps, and you probably understand this, that at one time, perhaps this earth was a very pristine new platform with very enlightened beings who were in perhaps that 12th field that you talked about. So with all the changes that have come through the earth and the different civilizations that have passed, come and gone through the earth, do you feel that perhaps we are all to be on this trajectory towards raising our consciousness? And this is the point in time where we have to choose the direction that we want to go, whom we will serve, so to speak. So raising our own consciousness, knowing that we are fully that from the beginning, that pure, conscious, divine state. Anyway, I'd like to hear what you have to say about that.
You bring up a very, very interesting point. Okay, where do I start? I mentioned that evolution is moving through the different morphogenetic fields. Yeah. And it makes that every next field is depending on the previous one. To give an example, the very first morphogenetic field was about viruses and bacteria. Well, as you know, they're still an inherent part of everything that exists. Yeah, we cannot live without bacteria. We have more bacterial DNA in our body than we have human DNA in our body, right? And we are depending on the bacteria and the viruses in the soil, and we have depleted the soil so much that there are not enough. So what you see is that in every next step of evolution, you know, when you get a cellular system, you see that in the first cell, bacteria were included. Yeah? So everything is building on the next step. Yeah? You can say that the first field is a prerequisite for the second till the 12th, that the first two is a prerequisite for and so on and so on. Yeah. So at a certain moment, and you can call that the evolution of Mother Earth, right? The evolution of her potential. Yeah. So at a certain moment when the animals, the mammals were, you know, active, the next phase was ready. And the next phase was the co-creator, the human being. So what did Mother Earth do? She sent out a call into the universe and say, hey, you know, in order for that next phase, we need souls that were willing into different, let's say, bodies to work as co-creators to make sure that this 11th step will unfold as part of my overall evolution in the same way as we now go to the next one, right? So when that call was, I'm writing at this moment a whole series of articles, so you step into my enthusiastic phase about sharing this. So, you know, what happens is that souls that reacted, a group of that, and I call them the founders. The founders set the stage for human consciousness. They knew what Mother Earth needed. They knew what the souls could bring in. So they created actually a set of 12 different, I call that consciousness grid systems. And that is like a matrix for us to unfold. But what happened is that you have to imagine that these souls that came in are high frequency consciousness beings. Yeah? So they could not plunge into the physical level right away. So what happened is that the founders created 12 levels of consciousness, of which the highest level, was actually the level of consciousness that resonates with the spiritual body of Mother Earth. And then you get a group of frequency levels that was resonating with the mental body of Mother Earth. And then there are some that goes to the emotional, and then finally the ones that resonate with the physical. Now, when we talk about other civilizations, then we talk actually about memories we have about the time that we were souls incarnating into an energy of a body, what we now call an energy body, that resonate, for example, with the mental body of Mother Earth, and that was the time of Lemurian. And when we resonated with the emotional body of Mother, that's the time of Atlantis. And then, but we need all those frequencies in order to cover the whole range of the frequencies of Mother Earth. So ultimately, there were the very brave souls that were willing to go into the physical body of Mother Earth, the frequencies, and that is us. So we were plunged into that system, and we needed to forget, because the natural tendency is to stay in that high frequencies. So we needed to forget. Yeah, we needed to be in these low frequencies. So what has happened now is that every level of consciousness that the founders believed we needed to go through in order to be in alignment as a human consciousness with all aspects of Mother Earth, that is now reached. We are here. We have plunged in the depths of the depths. There is nothing deeper. We can't sink more than where we are. So you're right. This is the beautiful moment where things are turning in, and we are going now up into higher frequencies. So the first step for that is to use that potential, that I said is in that 11th morphogenetic grid. So all those frequencies of human consciousness are in that morphogenetic grid. And if you know how to find them, either through dowsing or use your system as a dowsing system and feel and find those things, you can connect with the four worlds, as I call them, that still exist. Yeah. So one of the books that I wrote is about the Shi, which are living actually in the second world still today. And they live in a totally different frequency system. And now learning to communicate with them is part of beginning to make the four separate worlds into one world. When we reach that moment, we will make a quantum jump into our evolution, because then, it's easier to go also into that consciousness of what I call the enlightened human being. Now, the beauty is that although we are, as human beings in the fourth world, the physical world, we have still to do a lot of work. Let me be nice. We have to do a lot of work. That at the same time, all the other developments are already taking place. So in the last 2 years, the first grid of the consciousness of the enlightened human being has appeared. That means that there are enough people, consciously or subconsciously, already tapping into that next morphogenetic field, due to which now that grid system can exist. Yeah, because a grid is always a result of the use of those frequency of potential, right? So if nobody's using it, there will be no grids. The potential can be there, waiting patiently until somebody is connecting with it. But once it's connected, it starts creating those grid systems. Yeah. So we are in an unbelievable, beautiful phase at this moment. And, when I connect with the Shi, one of the things that I can appreciate now so much is initially they didn't want to have anything to do with us. Our low vibration was throwing their system off, and they didn't want. And now they realize that all those frequencies are needed. All those worlds are needed. And only when we are willing to work together, and that is beginning to unfold, for those who are sensitive may feel the presence of inner earth people, of the Shi people, whatever terms you prefer, the blue rays, you just name the different beings that exist. All of them are now willing to collaborate, but they are not collaborating with the collective of the fourth world as a whole. There's too much negativity in it. But they're willing to open up for every individual that is ready, And I feel that is happening, and a group like that is connected to Janice, her beautiful system, is the group of people that can connect with them. Yeah, and it's not, and most of you may be already connecting knowingly or unknowingly with those frequencies and are building up those new grids, right? So that is the power of where we are at in this moment. Yeah. So there is so much going on. Yeah. So you may understand now what I said in the beginning. If you hold on to your old beliefs, it's not that easy to flow into the current development. Open yourself for it, start working with it, and get excited about it. I think that last is the key point.
Yes, the shitty, I called fairies, and I was in communication with them when I was a child. Mm-hmm. Not so much anymore, but yeah, you're right. They're there. It's all there. Yeah. Go ahead, Susan. Did you have a follow-up?
Yes, and I'm looking at this whole trajectory from the beginnings of time on Earth to this time. And I'm seeing that there is such struggle where people are coming to that point where they have to choose. We have to decide what direction and which level that we want to move to. And we have to wake up to the reality and have an understanding of what we really are, because we really, this whole thing is a playground. And this is an illusion. We're creating all of this and have been. So I'm looking at, initially, I used to look at the dark side, the satanic ones, as separate. And all of a sudden, and just in the very recent past, I have seen the role they are playing. They are testing us to see whom we shall serve. We have the opportunity, we have the power within us, and we just have to recognize it. That we are divine conscious beings as love, which is life's omnipotent verities eternal, pervading the universe. So I feel that this has been a playground where we have been testing that in a 3D 5 sense form. And now we've come to that point where we have to wake up to see the reality, that conscious state that we are, and vibrate, as you were talking, the vibratory frequencies. So this is just a theory. So I'm wondering how you see that, if you see that, because for all of a sudden, you blame them, but you can't. We can only blame ourselves. Correct.
Yeah, that brings us to that point of polarity, right? That's where you're talking about polarity. Now, polarity is a fascinating aspect because, people are talking about that we need to go to the light and then the dark will disappear. The dark will never disappear because there is always polarity. There is always this via that. And that has been built in the whole universe. When you go and start with the universe, the oneness, the one, the creator, the beginning, the nothingness, whatever, you see from your perspective as the very beginning. I see the very beginning as nothingness, out of which consciousness came, that became self-aware. So at the moment that consciousness is self-aware, you have polarity. Yeah, because the consciousness sees that, okay, this is me, but that by definition means that's not me or not yet me. By definition. Yeah. So polarity is something you can't get rid of. Yeah. So depending on the world and the situation and the consciousness system you're in, that polarity can go into extremes of light and dark. Yeah. But it will always be darkness and there'll always be light. Yeah. And I totally agree with you. You have to make a choice. Yeah. So at the moment as a soul, you have always the choice which side you choose, even before you even incarnate into this planet, right? So what do you choose? Now, I think in order to choose, you have to experience what you need to choose between. If you know only light, there's nothing to choose. So we all have gone through moments that you can call darkness. And let's be honest, if you look at yourself, there are moments that you may not think such nice things of a certain person or whatever, well, that's an aspect of darkness. Sorry, that's the dark aspect of our souls, you can say. Past life experience. We have all done things. Yeah. So I totally agree with you that we are continuously have to choose. But you can only choose, and this is a very important point, that I'm repeating it, when you have gone through experiences. So now we go back to what I said about accepting what a person is on their journey. You remember I said it in the beginning. What that has to do is understanding that we all need to do this pendulum swing to some degree to find out, oh, this is me. That is where I resonate with. And that is not necessarily extreme light. It can also be somewhere there. It's all about resonance that is needed in order to fulfill a certain purpose. Incarnating means you come here to do something, or you wouldn't have come, right? So in order to fulfill that purpose, some people may do something that we would define as something dark. But it is as essential as doing something light. And that is why I said we would have to learn not to judge. Because it is through seeing that darkness that you say, oh, but that's not what I want. So that you can make your choice. Yeah, that is not me, not in this lifetime. Yeah, and what I feel is you can say the Earth's evolution is only light. No, the Earth's evolution is not only light, it's destruction. Yeah, things have disappeared. Mother Earth is shaking their booty, and then suddenly, there is lava flow and people die. There are storms, there are things, part is induced by human consciousness also. But other than that, there is always destruction and creation. Yeah. So you see again the polarity. Yeah. Creation, destruction. And then you see suddenly that everything is a cycle. So even light and dark is a cycle. Yeah, for some of us, for some, for whatever reason, don't choose to go there ever. And some choose to go to the dark. For whatever reason, they do that. Yeah. So I think we agree. We need to make choices. In each moment, for almost every aspect of our life, that always have to do with the polarity and see where we are on that pendulum swing from that particular subject.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah.
Anybody else have a question? Okay. Go ahead, Rebecca.
Everybody's talk is so interesting and the questions are interesting. I was curious, I wanted to know, how do you find the portals? What does it feel like to be in the presence of one? And although I know what it feels like to get messages from a tree or from an animal, what does it feel like to get messages from Mother Earth as a whole, letting you know whether or not you're in alignment with her?
Wow, yeah. The first place, it's important to realize that we all are unique beings, so we all will receive things in a rather unique way. Yeah. And we also will always experience it in a unique way. But there are certain things that are more general things, and we can talk about the general things. You started with portals. Yeah. How do you find portals? There are a couple of ways you can do that. One of the ways, of course, if you learn to dowse, dowsing can help you to find a portal. Yeah. Some people use their whole system as a dowsing system and simply feel and are set an intention and then can walk to such a portal. All of that requires the development of two things: quieting the mind and learning to feel, to be still so that you can feel and sense. Yeah. One of the things, I'm doing research now for 9 years on portals. Every Friday I go out with my hiking buddy and we do portal research because we're both fascinated by it. And one of the things that I learned is that this Earth is connected to an unbelievable amount of star systems. And that we are actually, as a sphere in this universe, so unbelievable interconnected with so many different beings. So each of those portals feels different. Yeah. And again, it is a training to learn to feel. You know, in the beginning, for me, it was like, well, what's this? So what I did is I used, again, in the beginning, I needed dowsing. So I had my list of all the star systems and planets, you know, and then I went through, is this, is it that, is it that, is it that? And then I said, well, oh, wow, this feels, okay. And then I was sitting on such a place to learn to feel what the energy was that belonged to, for example, the Pleiades. Yeah. So there was a higher chance that when I met another Pleiadian portal, that is, oh, I've seen this before, I felt this before, right? And that is how you build that up. So I go back to the importance of training. You know, there's a lot of people that think you can just quickly learn to do this and that. As soon as you start working with subtle energies, it requires training. You know, you don't become a good golfer or tennis player by thinking, I have something, I have the tools and now I can do it. No, you need to train. Because this is the same thing. You need to train. You need to train your system to learn to recognize, and then at a certain moment, it recognizes. Yeah, because it is now so familiar with it. And it is wise to do that also with other people that are sensitive enough so that you have a reference system, because your system can tell you all kinds of stuff that may not be always true, you know. So I like to go with other people. I started, in a sense, already in the Netherlands, and we went with a whole group. What is this? What do you feel? And the dowsers and pendulums, and you know, other people were coming with instruments and say electromagnetic this. And so that's how we started to learn, you know, training. So that's about the portals. Communication with any being, visible or invisible, has the same requirements. Learning to quiet the mind. Listening with your heart. Because this is not the language that we have learned. And I mentioned before that the language that we speak is a very limited way of communicating. So what we learn when we listen, then there come in first the word, I call it impulses. And it is very important that even though they make no sense, that you really listen to them and give them preferably words. Even though words are incomplete, is what we have, right? So that is so important that we allow ourselves to get all these impulses to come in and not say, nah, that's nonsense. That's nonsense. I cannot listen to them. So I hear people say, no, that can't be true. And I said, well, why not? Yeah. So if you communicate with let's say the tree that you mentioned, that tree is so happy to share something with you. But in order to hear it, feel it, sense it, whatever the right term is, you need to learn to listen by shutting off that mind that has opinions about it. And then we go back to the same word, training. You know, why do I give workshops and stuff is to help people to train, because we need training. And although I recognize that not everyone needs the same training, there are the same principles within each training. So the same is true for communicating with an animal. Now, realize that we are all unique. You know, I like to stress that statement again and again and again. So not everyone will, let's say, have the same connection with a portal, or the same connection with a tree, or the same connection with whatever. So I think it's important to realize that you need to find where you resonate with, what your unique resonance is. And you learn that by connecting with the different systems and then feel and experience. Yeah. So how does it feel to communicate with Mother Earth? Yeah. it still until today, touching, overwhelming, loving, feeling suddenly belonging. Because realize from a physical perspective, you are a piece of Mother Earth. Yeah. I joke often that we are walking pieces of Mother Earth, moving pieces of Mother Earth. Yeah. And if you can see yourself as that piece of Mother Earth, and then the distance between you and Mother Earth becomes smaller and smaller. Yeah. Then you can allow the fact that you are already Mother Earth be the guide in experience Mother Earth. Does that make sense? Yeah. And that is, again, sitting. Sit with your butt on Mother Earth, touch with your hands, put your hands in the soil, and say, Mother Earth, or as Jeannie, my wife, always says, Mom, here I am. Yeah. And then see what the response is. Because if you say, here I am, she will tell you, here I am. And that is the beginning of that deeper connection that will translate at a certain moment in literally communication with her. Yeah. So that are a few suggestions for you.
Okay, you have, Jaap, you have a number of courses that you offer and techniques that you offer for helping us get into communication with the unseen and with ourselves and so forth on your website. I'd like to bring up the subject of the crystals and the crystalline energy. You have a group that you formed called the Crystalline Movement, which I'm a part of, and Megan here is also a part of recently for me. Can you explain a little bit about your interest in the crystalline energy and crystals?
Yeah.
And how it helps us?
Yeah.
I know that's a big subject, but briefly, if it's possible.
Yeah, crystalline energies. It is actually quite interesting I'm a biologist, right? And at a certain moment after being a research scientist, I became more into education. So I was teaching at the University of Utrecht. And then I became responsible for the exhibitions of a natural history museum. It was actually totally a zoological museum. But later, the two were merged, and suddenly I was promoted into being that over also the geological museum. And I didn't know much about stones and crystals at all. And I remember, because the woman who was head of the Department of Exhibition and Education, she was passionate about it. So suddenly I was her boss, and this dude didn't know anything about crystals, So I went to her and got a little education. And something happened when I was there. I was looking at this crystal like, wow, I've never really looked at crystals. And during a training not long after that, and it was a training in intuitive development, the woman put a amethyst crystal in the center and said, the job is to feel what the history of this crystal is. And it was the 15th and last lesson. I had the feeling that I had failed miserably. So I was staring at this crystal and said, now I'm going to get something, And I felt suddenly a crack in my head, and I got an unbelievable sharp pain. And I said, I'm done. I will never develop this intuition or whatever. Well, not knowing that in that moment, two things happened. Well, in the first place, something cracked open in my brain, and I began to feel and sense things beyond what I ever did before. But something happened with me and crystals. It was like as if I suddenly realized I need to connect more with crystals. And that was again confirmed when I went for the first time from the Netherlands. I was still living at that time there, to visit Sedona. And I met a woman that looked at me and like people in Sedona do. They all have some psychic abilities or whatever they have. So they looked at me and they said, I have a surprise for you. And they set me into a chair, and I had to close my eyes, and I got this big heavy lump in my eye, in my hands, and I started to cry like a baby for half an hour, sobbing. I had still no idea what I had in my hands. And when I opened my eyes, I had a crystal skull in my hand. And my first thought was, how can such an ugly thing create such an emotional reaction? Well, that cracking in my head with that skull, and that skull forced me to look at what's going on with me. So I got my own crystal skull, and from there I started to explore. Now, jumping forward, initially it was about crystal skulls and understanding why I had this emotional reaction. Yeah, but that's ultimately irrelevant. It was like my system finally said, oh, finally he's on the right track, so it was more an emotional reaction like that. But what I began to understand is not about a crystal skull, it's a piece of Mother Earth. And that brought me to that realization that Mother Earth is crystalline in nature. And that is so important because it means that every living being is always living in a sea of crystalline energies. We cannot live without crystalline energies. And not only that, if you then go a step further, every planet out there, and there are billions, if not trillions, are all crystalline lumps of energies, where visible and invisible beings are evolving. This whole universe is crystalline in nature. And that means that every living being, independent of where you live in this universe, in order to build based on the morphogenetic, or if you want, the matrix, build this physical system, it's building it with pieces of Mother Earth. Every atom, is coming from Mother Earth, which means we are crystalline beings. We have made this crazy, and I've done that as in my scientific world. I've done that also. We separate that what is living biological creatures versus that what is dead material, right? Well, Mother Earth is very alive and has her own consciousness. And we are depending on her. And that is why it's so important, and I don't want to go into, what we are doing to Mother Earth, but everyone in this group knows that we are basically a very destructive species that is actually literally destroying the very thing they are depending on to a degree that, well, maybe this species is not supposed to continue. And then the souls will express the co-creatorship through other beings. We are not needed. We are needed, but not in this form if we don't want to fit into the system. So a tree is a crystalline being. That little plant that we call a weed and we pull out because it's in the way of our beautiful garden is a crystalline being. Yeah. But even, our virus that gives us the flu is a crystalline being. And all those crystalline beings are interacting within that crystalline system of Mother Earth, who functions within the crystalline system of the solar system, which function in the crystalline system of our galaxy and in the crystalline universe. So now you may understand why I'm so passionate about crystalline energies, because in order to understand that when we work with a crystal, we actually set a chain of reactions into motion, that we better do that in a proper way. And, people take things as stones and crystals very lightly, and, they adore them and then they forget about them and they use them to make sure that when the window is open, that their papers are not flying around. Well, these are conscious being, pieces of Mother Earth that we need to honor. That we are have a very interesting interaction with without realizing that we have it. Okay? So in order for our system to function, we need a number of things, but we definitely need that support of crystalline energies. Because every aspect of consciousness is supported by crystalline energies. Crystalline energies are bringing in, through this universal system, two main flows: consciousness, which sets things into motion, creation into motion, and it brings in the information that needs to be set into motion, the morphogenetic system. So those two flows are all crystalline in nature. Now, to add to that, and this is for some people maybe even more difficult to believe, our chakra system is actually a crystalline energy system. If you go to Mother Earth has a chakra vortex system of 12 different systems, and our system is resonating with that. It's not that we created of Mother Earth. No, Mother Earth makes that we have that system so that we can be in alignment, not only with her system, but also with the 12 chakra system of our solar system. And when you go, I have made this course based on the sun, in order to help to understand that actually chakras are a universal resonance system that also exists in us, which means that we are now in a phase that we have the potential to resonate not only with Mother Earth, but with the whole universe. And that is what we are invited to. Now, in order to do that, we have to make that famous alignment of those chakras by learning to understand what those energies are. But if you truly want to understand chakras, go to Mother Earth. Yeah. And then you see that they are crystalline energies that we need to learn to work with, because they tell us how well we interact with Mother Earth and with everything around us.
Well, I'd like to mention also, thank you for that, that you have courses that will teach us some of these skills, and we can find them on your website.
Yeah.
And
well, the reason why I created the Crystalline movement was because Mother Earth literally asked me.
Oh.
Yeah. So one day I was sitting and meditated somewhere in the canyons on one of the walls there, and you have these beautiful views in the Red Rocks in Sedona. I know several people know the area, so it's like, yum, yum, yum. And so sitting and meditate there, I have suddenly heard very loudly, it's like, it's time to create a course so that people begin to have the opportunity to connect with different aspects of me. That was literally her question. So the Crystalline movement is actually has grown into something that was way beyond what I thought that Mother Earth was asking for. Yeah. And that is, I go back to throw all your beliefs into the air, because if I would have stuck to what I thought she was saying, you would not have the Crystalline movement. And it's for a very small amount. You can have 5 free courses and a weekly Zoom where we continuously train to work deeper with those energies and go from consciousness systems to, understanding portals, to whatever it is that in that moment is appropriate. And I always let Mother Earth guide us in that process. So it's not about the Crystalline movement per se, or me or the group. It is about those who feel that they want to work with Mother Earth and be willing to follow what Mother Earth is inviting us to do. Sometimes they're like, oh, you really? We did that last week already. That's my mind, But the money else, no, we do it another time, and people always grow through it. Anyway, yeah.
okay, thank you. Any questions by anybody so far? Go ahead, Megan.
Well, I just want to say, as someone who has read all of your books and taken all of your courses, it has upshifted me in beyond words.
Thank you.
It's very subtle and delicious and viscerally enlivening. And so I, can't say enough about how grateful I am to have found you, but also to share this with other people, because it's so true. And it's the sacred knowledge that we have been deprived of for so long. But it rings so true without words, you see, because the practice, and I do it every day. So I can't come on Sundays because I'm playing tennis now at the time. So then the next day I do the crystalline movement meditation, in addition to all the other courses that I've taken. But it is my holy hygiene intake every day. And it's, takes 20 minutes or, it's not long, but it's the practice of feeling with all our senses, the practice we didn't get at traditional education, which is why Susan's, launching this creativity school to really give us the true education that we should have all had. And by the way, and I'm working with Susan as well, I saw Jaap's courses within this school like that, it's a natural. But anyway, all this to say that, if someone has questions about what the courses are like or whatever, I'm someone who has experienced them. And so I'd be happy to answer any questions. His books are amazing as well. Very, just this continual expansion, this learning journey. It's like, I just feel like I'm going to a university every day. Jaap is one of many people that I resonate with and I'm learning from in this self-conducted education that I'm finally able to nourish myself with. So that's it.
Beautiful. Yeah, thank you. Now, realize that, to make a comment about the books, with exception of the book on the she, they are not what you call reading books. There are books to basically, I don't want to say study, but to invite you, to see for yourself where you resonate with, and how it can help you on your journey. The same as you so beautifully described, everything that, at least as far as guided that we do, is to help you to find yourself. It's never about the movement. It's never about the book. It's about offering possibilities so that the person can pick out those elements. As they say, and I don't know what is the correct translation, whether you have it, but take the resins out of the porridge, to have that what is for you the most important elements, to really enjoy for yourself and your personal growth, right? It's never about everything. It's not about taking anything over, And one of the things that I always hope is that people understand that what I share is where I am, not how it is, so that you can take out those things. Now, those who follow the Zoom meetings, I'm saying that so often, please don't follow me. Listen to where you resonate with. And we go back to that heart place, right? Because your heart is telling you what is important for you. And if we all would become the same thing, I see people trying to be like a person who is teaching. And I think that is the horror of what I've seen in our educational system. We have to become parrots. We have to repeat, And the only thing that I hope is that people are not repeating. I hope that they take out that and then process it for themselves in such a way that they can express who they are, because we need people's uniqueness. We don't need there's all this general commonality stuff. No, the uniqueness. You came here to bring your uniqueness into this world.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that is, why I like the way you phrase it, that you pick up from different places those things that are important for you.
Yes.
So that you can be you.
Yes.
Know?
Yes.
Yeah. And not Jaap or Susan or whoever. No, you. Yeah. Beautiful.
Exactly.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'd like to echo what Megan is saying. I'm new to you. Megan introduced me to you a couple of months ago. And since then, I've joined the movement, the crystalline movement. And I've not written your books, but I would like to tell people to recommend going to your YouTube channel. I really appreciate your way of teaching of the lessons, because they're like 15 minutes each one. And that's so good because it's a small bite you can,
Yes.
and
So are the
ponder.
courses. The courses are very short, so you can
Yes.
do 10 minutes a day.
Yes.
Very easy to digest.
Yes. And also the videos on your YouTube channel are incredible. And also they're like from 7 to 15 minutes. I mean, they're short pieces also. What a brilliant thing to do. And I have a list, I think I'll just name a few things here, a list of ones that I'm going to be going to. I've checked off the ones and I've got a few more. Here's one that I've watched 3 times, so I want to watch it again. It's called The Flow of Love, A Message from Mother Earth. And it's so beautiful. I resonate with it so well. And it's I thought I knew a lot about love. I've given talks about love, the healing nature of love and all this. And this is a kind of a different take. And I just love it. By the way, go to his, all of my notices, and the new one you're going to get on about this meeting will include his website and the YouTube channel. But the YouTube channel has dozens and dozens and dozens of videos. And I'll just read a couple of them that are on my list. Expand Your Worldview, A Message from the Sun. Open for contact and deeper connection with the energies of change. Connect with your family and the stars. Working with crystalline energies. Astral worlds and beings. Angel meditations, a dozen of those. Understanding the whole, the key to change. The call of the whales. And the city or fairies. And there's so many other subjects. I mean, these are the ones that I chose. It's just my list that I check off, and the next one I'm going to do, and so forth. And the one about love, Jaap, is so beautiful. I wrote down your statement below the video. It says, we all have some idea of what love is, but Mother Earth gave a perspective that feels so much richer and fuller than I ever thought or felt, that it changed me. How did it change you?
I go back to what I said about definitions and words, right?
Yeah.
One of the most complex words is love. The number of ways people use that word is almost as high as the number of people that exist. I'm sometimes joking. But love actually is far more a state of being than that it is something else. And if you really go back even a step farther, then love is actually the breath of the Creator. Yeah. So the breath of the Creator is that what gives life to creation. And so that means it's actually the same thing as life force. Life force is pure love. And we all know that, and they have done horrible experiments, in the time of my biological stuff, I found them even interesting, and now I'm like, oh, that was terrible. But, they, for example, found that if you take a little monkey and you deprive it of love, it gets totally berserk. So it literally ultimately dies. So it means that when you don't give love, something dies off. So love is so much more expanded, and if you see how Mother Earth unconditionally loves us, that is something that has changed me completely, to feel that, you know. When I say, well, put your hands in the soil, I really mean that, because that is how you can connect with Mother Earth, not only as a crystalline being, but also as a being of a consciousness level that is way beyond ours. And as part of that is that unconditional love for all of the creation that lives on her system, you know. Realize it's an expression of her. It is her morphogenetic system that allows this physical system to exist. Yeah, I call that love. Yeah, and not only that, if I, in my, especially not knowing, you know, was doing things that was not beneficial for her, yeah, if I now connect with her, I don't feel that she's angry with me because in my stupidity of the past, I did all those things. She still loves me. And that is, yeah, that has changed me. And I realized that if that is the case for her, what does that then mean as me being a piece of her, also on a physical level? Can I, as a physical being, I'm not talking about the spiritual being, but as a physical being, go to that state of unconditionality? And that is still a journey, because I think everyone will agree with me that, you know, we can love a person, but as soon as the person said something we don't like, well, in that moment, and the love is for a moment withdrawn. Can come back, but for that moment, it's gone. Yeah. And even, you know, when you look at your children when they are little and they are naughty the whole day, you know, and at a certain moment you bam, say, now it's enough. Well, for that moment, there is no love, you know. And so we have learned that withdrawing love is very normal. But what is interesting is, for Mother Earth, that doesn't exist. So that is another one of those many beautiful things that we can learn. You know, we can even go farther, because in the whole course that I made about the sun, and that was a request of the sun, you know, the logos of the sun. You know, if you look at the sun, the sun is equally, totally unconditional, you know. And that is something that we in our society, there are a few people that can do it, but most of us still have a ways to go to really live from that state, you know. And again, I'll go back to no judgment about it. Please don't. We are all on our path. But yeah. So Mother Earth trains me. You know, that's why she asked me those questions. And sometimes I think she's a little bit naughty. You know, let me see how he reacts if I tell him to do that for me. But, and then as my but and my objections come in, I'm like, oh, sorry, mom. I understand you. Yeah, I'm joking a little bit about it, but basically that's what happens to me still today. Yeah.
Become a more obedient son, right?
Yeah, I was always joking to Jeannie, you know, I'm your obedient servant because women have more wisdom in their pinky than men in their whole body. So I need to listen to you. You know, so that's why for the time, I really seriously have played that for a couple of years, to be her obedient servant, to listen to what she had to say instead of coming with my logic mind that has another opinion about it. It was a good training, a very good training for me.
On that note, we'll have to end this meeting. And Megan has knows you, has been read all your books, and she has an ending beautiful poem to give us a little bit of upliftment and in honor of you too, Jaap. So Megan, go ahead.
Thanks. Just as background, I as part of my awakening, I was moved to creatively transcribe what I come to know. So I do word paintings, I call them, because I paint words until they ring true. I paint like music, like notes. So anyway, this one is an excerpt from one called Sacred Knowledge, Secret No More. So if you want to close your eyes, you can feel the words a little better, if you like. The universe reveals its secrets to those who dare engage their hearts to end mental madness. Ancient ancestors acquired secrets of spirituality through quantum physics, the holiest science of them all. Currently beyond imagination, spreading like wildfire. Reality is multidimensional, and so are we. Uncovering the unseen to be well known. Reason enough to value heart intelligence, an undeniably contagious force to reclaim innate powers, our divine birthright, for whole-brained lead our ship. Despite the belief our brain holds primary power, heart is much mightier, 100,000 times more electrically potent, with a force 5,000 times greater than the brain's. Feelings are frequencies we are getting to know to our advantage. A source field of supreme intelligence when felt properly, with good intent and laser focus, can inspire the human collective. Perception, intuition, sensing, feeling, and imagination, heart's intelligence, is our most sophisticated navigational system, regenerating our wholly human operating system. A semi-conscious society can be controlled, but an awake, unified force is unstoppable, self-determining its full potential. Earth is the universe, for the bravest of souls, a present-day mystery school, magnetizing devoted disciples to become conscious creators. Training grounds for humans realizing ourselves, taking ownership of mighty powers, achieving higher states of being. Gnosis, direct knowing, our sixth sense, innate wisdom in action, is multisensory empowerment. Feeling is the sacred secret worth knowing for oneself. To harness love, proper use of life force, divining nature, true in form, through, with, and in, energy pristine. Inhabiting love within our being is truth, self-realized. As crystalline energies, benevolent beings in the elements unify energies within and all around us, fortifying our fields of perception, content in the knowing we have never been alone. Metaphysical ecologists, applying the most sacred of arts, freely thinking for deep knowing, uncaging consciousness to move from dis-ease to ease. You turning for an interior redesign, love well sensed. So hell has no choice but to release. Awakening greatly, a sacred recreation, inner engineering on a cellular level, enhancing ability to feel everything better, shedding our skins, letting it all go, to hold the center line, operative focus all of the time, bracing ease. God sparks, God sent, source generated, the ones creating it all. Ancient future, now becoming real. In an earth, take two. Love's truth, becoming the living word. Who we are, one for all.
Thank you, Megan. Thank you. And thank you, Jaap, for coming to us. What a beautiful, beautiful conversation. Thank you.
It was a real pleasure. And I like to thank everyone for their questions, because questions are actually always very inspiring. And I'm very grateful for them. Yeah.
Welcome. We're grateful for you. Okay, thank you, everyone.
It was a pleasure.
Good night, everyone.